Hello, welcome everyone to my very first playlist in this channel in which we'll be building this movies app, this first offline movies app actually. So this is how it looks like. We have a bunch of movies, basically this section for popular movies, and here we have the upcoming movies. When we click on a movie, we get to see some data, the rating, the language, and the date, votes, the title, some images, and the overview. And the cool part about this app is that, let's for example get to the bottom, we keep actually paginating and loading new movies as we scroll, and then when of course there is no image, then we'll display this, and just like this, when there is no data, we'll display zeros. So if we turn off internet connection or airplane mode like this, and then we open the app, we can still get the movies, as you can see. So this is the first offline app that actually works on offline mode because all this data is actually cached in the user's device. So you will see how you can make API calls, get the data from the API, and then cache that data with Room database, and then get the data from Room database. So basically, whatever you see here is actually accessed from, we access it from our device, but actually exists in Room database. So everything we accessing is in Room database. And yes, so this is the app. As I said, you will see a lot of things like how to use view models, screens, and create these gradients and get the average color from an image, and yes, all of these. And the API we'll be using for this app is this API, the movies database, I guess the movies DB API. You can just come to this website, I will link it, create an account. Normally just create an account with your data, and then go to settings and go to API right here. You will find an API key. I'm not going to click right here because I don't want you to see my API key, but in fact, let me just click, I will hide it, and this is the API key. Just copy the API key, that's all you need. Just copy and keep it somewhere, or just like, it's easy here now. This is the API key, and when you go to the documentation of this API, developer.themoviedb.org, this is the documentation in fact there are a lot of things you can actually get with this API, but for the simplicity of this video, and then actually when you do this, you can extend this as you want. We will where is that? I actually just lost it. We want this popular and upcoming movies. You can use, of course, the same now plane. It's just a query that changes, or in fact a path that changes. You can choose any of these. So in popular movies, this is the URL. Let's now try it. So we'll load in the first page, and here are now the movies. As you can see, let me just scroll like this. These are the movies, and then in the upcoming movies, it's the same URL, but we actually just changed the path. And when we click try it, yes, but actually if we put this URL directly, it won't work because we need an API key for that. So this is now how actually it will work. If we have our URL like this, and then we set upcoming movies, and then we specify the language. For example, here we specified English, and the page we want, and then the API key. I'm not going to show the rest of it. So yeah, so this one is the path, and then language is a query, page is a query, so we can have different pages, 1 2 3, of course, and then the API key is another query. So let's increase the page into 2. We get new movies basically. And then right here, if we change this into popular, now we get the popular movies. So this is the URL that we are going to use in our app to get the movies. And don't forget to check my Instagram account and follow me there. I post underweight and general programming tips and content. I will link this account on the description. Of course, you will find this app, the source code of this app on the description. It will be on GitHub. So actually, this is the type of videos that you need to watch if you want to really learn Android, because in the previous videos, all I did is introduce you to some technologies like Hilt, Retrofit, and navigation and all this stuff. But can you actually put all these things together in a functioning solid app? That's the thing. This is a clean architecture app basically that uses MVVM design pattern, and this is the app that you need to watch. The video that you need to watch to build an app, to build a clean architecture solid app. So you see how you can use Retrofit, room database, and cache all that data, get it, use the coroutines, flows, channels, and all these things in one app basically. So what do we need for this app? First, the dependencies, of course. In our build.gradle, we need the navigation, because we navigate between different screens. As you can see, we have the actually home screen, and then inside that home screen we have this bottom navigation, which again has two screens, the popular movies and the upcoming movies screen, and then we have the details screen. So we have actually 4 screens in our app. And then we need room database to cache the data. We need Dagger Health for dependency injection. I actually explained this in the previous video. You can go back and check it out if you don't know what Dagger Health and dependency injection is. I also explained room database, and I also actually explained navigation in Compose. And we need Retrofit. This is how we can get the movies from the API. And I also made a video, a detailed video about this. We need Quail to load images. Quail is just like Glide from XML. If you have used Glide before, this is the alternative to that in Jetpack Compose. Extended icons to get like more icons to use, and system UI controller just to change this status bar color, because its color by default is the primary color and it looks bad, but this is better. I make it the same as this color right here. So these are the dependencies we need. And right here we need this plugin, the Dagger Health plugin, and this capped as well, because Dagger Health uses annotations and generates code behind the scenes, and we need that for Dagger Health. And also this plugin in our projects app Gradle file. Just paste now these. You can find, as I said, this in the description, and then you can good to go. So what do we need to create first? The packages actually. The first package is of course for the movies list, in which we'll have the different things, the data layer, domain, and view model, everything inside there. So let's create now the first package. I'm just going to call it movie list, list like this. And inside here we first start with the data layer, which is actually the most complex layer maybe. So data. And inside our data we need different things. We need a local package to handle all the local operations with room database, and inside again the data layer we need another layer for remote to handle all I guess I need to rename this, to handle all the API calls and stuff that has to do with the API inside this room, inside this package I mean. And we need the repository package, but let's first just start with the remote. And inside our remote we're going to create now an API. As I said, I explained this. You can go back if you don't know what I'm doing, but an API is just an interface, so I'm going to call it movie API. In fact, it's not a class, it's an interface, as I said. And inside our API, let's just actually bring this a little bit like this. Inside our API we'll have one function, which is a suspend fun get movies list, to get all the list of movies basically. And we'll annotate this with get from Retrofit. And then first of all, let's just create the base URL. Inside the companion object we'll have a const val base URL that is equal. I'm just going to actually paste it. So this is the base URL. We'll duplicate this for actually the image, because this is how we can get the image from the database, because actually let's just go back to the API. I don't know if I can see this, but I don't think I can find it. Anyway, I actually go to the website, which is JSON editor, I guess. I think we'll have a better view right there. So this is how the API actually would look like. And let's search for the image here. As you can see, here is the first image, and the second image we just get like the ID, you could say, of the image, and then like it's JPG or something. But the rest of the URL is actually this that I'm going to paste. So this is, or the base of that URL, you could say this is it. And then the API key. So API key, but I'm not actually going to write it. Let me just remove this because I don't want you to see my API key, obviously. So what do we need after the base URL to load the movies? First of all, we need to specify, let's go back to the URL right here. We need to specify the first path, which is movie. So just write movie and then put a slash. The second path we want actually is changeable, so it could be popular or upcoming. So this one is mutable, we could say. So we'll name it category of the movie. So category, and this is it for the paths. Now the rest of the things will be just queries. So from the language, in fact, we don't actually need to specify the language, I guess. We just need the page and the API key. We don't need the language actually to get like different language movies. So the first path we need, so just annotate now this path with path and category. That's what we're going to name it. So category, and that is category of type string. That's now the actually only path we have, and then the rest of the thing is just queries. So we have two queries. The first one is the page, because this, as I showed you, you can increase the page to get more movies. So the page is of type integer, and the last query is the API key. So API key, just like this, that is API key and is of type string, and by default it is just API key, so we don't actually pass it. Yes, I guess I can do this like this. Yes, this is it now. So for our what do we call this, API, this is it for this API. We can get movies with this API. Now the second thing in our remote is that we want to have a respond package. So what we'll get in actually from the API, so respond, and inside here I'm not actually going to manually create anything, but we'll use this plugin that you can get, of course, from plugins. This plugins actually just generates data classes for our API. So here you go to plugin and just search JSON in the marketplace, so just JSON, and you will get it, and then install it. You may need to restart the IDE to be able to use it. So how does this plugin work? So if we go here to our API, just copy the entire thing. Again, I already explained this in the retrofit video. Go to respond, new Kotlin data class from JSON. We paste now our JSON, and let's name it movie list DTO. So DTO stands for data access object. So this is how we access the objects, you could say. Inside our DTO, this is how it looks like, because in our API we have actually page, even if you didn't see that. But if we go all, oops, what did I do? All the way down. I don't know what's going on. Is it all the way down? Yes, you can see to top pages, results, and at the top we have the number of page and then the list of movies. So page, movies, that is called the results in this case, in total pages, total results. And now this is now our movie, which is called the result in this case, which we have all the data like ID and title, I don't know, everything we need, overview. And actually I'm not going to call it results, I'm going to name it to have a more descriptive name, which is movie DTO. And I'm not renaming it here, because if you rename this, then actually this library that generates this data class wouldn't know what that is if it's not called results, because in the API it is called results, so it wouldn't know what this is, and it might just throw an error or something, but it wouldn't work. So keep naming it results, because that's the name of it in the API. Now actually in our movie DTO, these are nullable, because sometimes you happen to get a movie that has no language, or no overview actually inside it. So these are nullable. I'm just going to put question marks like this to make them nullable, but there's no point of doing that. I'm just going to actually paste that. So all of these like this, all of them put a little question mark there to tell that these are nullable, so they can be null. So yes, but these actually can't be null. These are always available. Now what's next? Actually, this is it for our remote. We can already get movies like this with this API. I'm going now to create my database. So inside my local package, I'm going to create, I could call it, if you want to have more than one package, because if you want to extend this app, then you might want to show the genres of the movies. Then you need a different database for that, because you can get that from, you can set different API, because you need to change the entire URL, not the entire URL, but what comes after the base URL will be completely different. So you may need a different URL to save those. I mean different database to save those, as I did actually in the original app. I'm just going to show it to you. So this is the original app. I am not going to make this app look like this, because this one is way too complex and it will take forever to build that. But if we scroll here, and we'll find actually we get the genre of the movie, which is in this case comedy, and also here drama, action, and adventure, and all these stuff. But to get these, you actually need to change the URL, what comes after the base URL, and also to get the length of the movie and this thing, I don't know, with some introduction to the movie or something like this. You need to change the base URL, and not the base URL, but what comes after that. So you may need to create a different API and different database for that. But for our case, I'm not going to do that, to just keep this simple. But that's actually will be your homework. When you make this, you watch me make this and you get it done, your homework is actually to extend the app and make it look like this, because this is a more advanced app, more beautiful, or has more features. You can actually watch a tutorial, a trailer, which you actually need to make a different API call for that. So you can extend this, and everything is available here. Every single thing you need for movies and TV series actually as well is available here. So just you can do that, and you can also get the cast or the actors in each movie. So in our local package, I'm going to have a package called movie, I guess, because as I said, you can create different databases for this movie, just for the movies database, in which I will have first of all the DAO, which is, I made a mistake. Actually, this one is not, what is that? This one is not data access object. So this one is not data access object, but data transfer object, because with this we can get the data and then transfer it to entities, basically, that we can store in our database. I just made that mistake. This is data transfer object, remember that. And the one we're going to create right now, so I'm going to call it movie, start out with a capital letter, movie DAO. This is now the data access object. So with this interface, we can now access the objects inside our room database. So what do we need? Actually, we need to annotate this with DAO like this, and we'll have three functions here. The first one is going to be an upsert function, which is a suspend fun upsert movies list or movie list, and that will take the list of the movies. So movie list, that is of type, actually I did not create the entity yet, which is what I'm going to do first. So movie entity. Now my movie entity is going to look like the same as this one. Actually, it's just the same thing, but the entity will be for actually, what is it? Will be for storing this in the database. The difference is here. First of all, we need to make the ID as the primary key. So just put a comma here and then annotate this with primary key. And then we need to add another thing. Let me create space, which is category, because from the API we don't get the category of the movie, because we search for like popular movies, but when we get them we don't have something here that tells us this is the popular movie or an upcoming movie. So we need to do that ourselves. So just go in a new line and var category, which will be assigning by ourselves. So category that is of type string. Okay, yes, this is it now for the movie. What is this? What I'm doing? Yeah, entity, because I read DAO in here and I was like, I mean DTO here, and I was like, what's going on? This is entity. So this is the movie entity, and yes, actually for the entity. So inside now our DAO, we need to make this a list of movie entity. So this is now for updating and inserting list. So, or if we are inserting something that's already there, then it will be updated. If it's not there, then it will be inserted. That's why it's called upsert, and it works just fine. The second thing, if we're getting a movie by ID to display it in the details screen. So suspend fun get movie by ID, that will take an ID of type int, and it will return a movie entity. We'll annotate this with query to specify that we want to get the movie that has such an ID. Let's just create space. So how do we now filter this? We can say select. This is how you can use room database, and to say from, like this little star is from movie entity, movie entity, where ID is equal to ID. So what I'm saying here is that from our movie entity, basically this is the entity, we're going to search our database and find the entity that has such an ID, which is this ID. Actually, basically this is now the ID, and this ID belongs to the movie entity. It shows an error here, maybe I just need to rebuild and the error will be gone. I'm now going to copy this function and paste it to get the movie list by a category. So get movie list by category, and here we say select from movie entity, now category, here as well category, and here category is actually a string now. Oops, string, like this. So what we're saying is that search, but we'll be returning now a list, this one, a list of movie entities, not one movie entity. So we'll find all the movie entities that has this category in them. So this one, the one that will pass basically, and then we'll put that in a list and return that. So that's how room database works. I explained this in a previous video, you can check that. Now let's actually create our database. So our database, let's call it movie database, and that is an abstract class, and we'll annotate it as a room database is just a bunch of annotations, so it's really simple. So we'll annotate this with database actually, and then the entities, that's the first thing we need. Entities is going to be our movie entity class, like this, and then the version, so the version of the database, in case you've changed something later, then this version will be different. Inside now here, our abstract class, we need to first extend the room database class, and we need constructor for this, and here we will have one variable which is for the movie DAO. So abstract var movie DAO, that is of type movie DAO. I guess the error may be gone now, or I still need to build to make this error gone. I thought after writing the database it will be gone, but this is now it for our local database. Now what we need to do is I'm going to create a domain layer in which we'll have my repository and the domain, or the movie domain module, actually not the domain. So here domain, we will have inside domain actually is inside here. So this one belongs to this future of the movie list future, you could say. Inside here I will have a package called module, in which we'll have all my modules. I don't think this is how we spell that. I guess this is how we do it. So inside my module and we'll have one thing which is movie, and what movie is just what we already have here. It will look just the same as the entity with one little difference, so we'll call it movie. Oops, I don't know what happened. I thought I pasted that, but it's called movie. What's going on here? I don't have an idea. I want to copy this and paste it here inside module, but it's not pasting. I think I will restart my IDE and I'll be back. So after restarting the IDE, now it's pasted. I think, I don't know, but is the error going to be gone? Not yet. I still need to build. But this is the movie module. I just need to remove API key from here, and yes, it will just look like the entity, but there is one difference actually. These are not nullable, so I should remove these, and I'm just going to paste it because there's no point of removing them in front of you. So like this, and the same actually for the movie entity. These can't be null. That's why I'm also just going to paste it, because there is no point of removing them. So these can't be null. Just I paste that to remove those question marks. The only thing that can be null is what we get from the remote, because it's possible that something is missing, but we shouldn't have anything missing inside our database. So that's it for our movie module. Our module now inside our domain will have a repository package. Inside our repository package, we're going to create now our movie repository, which is going to be an interface movie list repository, and that will have two functions: to get a movie list and to get one movie, basically. Spend fun get movie list, and this will need some parameters. First of all, the first one is called force fetch from remote, and that is a boolean. So when we paginate, then this needs to be true, because by paginate I mean when we scroll down, so when we get to the bottom, then we need to say this is true to force the remote to give us new movies to display here. But when we don't paginate, when we just, for example, close the app and open it again, then we don't need to get movies from the remote, we just get them from the database. That's why we have this variable here. And then the category of the movies, that is string, and the page, that is increasable basically, and we'll return a flow that is actually one class that I need to create. So first of all, I did not create a video about flows yet, but I will. So the first thing is actually I need to create a util package in which I will have different things. I'm actually going to paste them. I'm not going to write them, but I'm going to paste them and then explain them. Let me just bring this, because I already explained them in previous videos and they just take too much time to write them, but I'm going to explain them, and I will explain them one by one. The first one we need actually inside this flow is the resource. I already showed you what this is in a previous video. I'm going to fix the package name, I guess. The resource class is just something we use with flows, basically, that when we try getting movies, the first thing we want is to send that we started loading, and then when we get the movies, we send the movies with this data. So this one is of type T, so it can be anything. It can be anything basically. In our case, it will be a list of movies. The data is going to be a list of movies that we say we succeed on getting them, and then loading set that to false after we finish loading. That's why we need this resource class. In case there is an error, so we start loading, an error occurs, either there's no internet connection or something is wrong, whatever, then we send a message with that error that says we couldn't get the data, or HTTP error or anything. And if we want to have like some default data, basically we can still pass that with this one. If not, we can just leave it null. So after that, we then just say now we're no longer loading. That's why we need this resource class. And what else do we have? The screens. I explained this in the not the previous video, but in a previous video why we need the tilt class to create screens. So we have different screens here: home, popular, upcoming, and detailed screens. That's all inherited from this tilt class, and each one with its route. Now the second thing is the category. We have two categories. Let me just do this: the popular and upcoming. So I just have them inside an object like this, so I can call them wherever I want in the app. Then this one is the average color. Basically, I don't have to explain this because I personally don't know how it works, but it helps us get this average color. As you can see, this image, it's fire, it's kind of brown in the orange, and the average color is this one. So we just pass a bitmap for this that we can get from our image, and then it returns for us a color that is that average color. And I'm not going to explain it because I don't know how it works. This is kind of complex. It uses some pixels in math and red, green, blue colors and stuff that I don't know. And then the last thing is the written bar, which is something I also made a video about, which is just a written bar composable, in which I'm going to just leave this as default. I want to have five stars. I pass the rating that I get from the movie, and then the color will just stay yellow to have now this written bar like this. So this is the stars modifier to get the stars bigger or smaller, and then this is the entire row modifier if I want to surround this with some color or anything, or have some background color. So yes, this is what we will have inside our util package. As I said, I'm not going to write them because that's a waste of time. So inside here, our flow will return a resource that I've created, and that is of type movie. So eventually I need to add a new one. In fact, not movie, but list of movies basically. So that is a mistake. This one is resource. I was like, what is the error? This one is resource, which is this one. And yes, we just need to actually import the find or the write flow, which is from coroutines, this one. So we return now our resource. As I said, we'll check, we'll be loading. When we succeed, we get the list of movies, and then we say we're no longer loading. And then the second function is going to be, suspend fun get movie. So one movie basically, to display that inside our details package. So that will take an integer, and again it will return a flow, but in this case it will be a resource of type movie, so we only want one movie. So this is now for our repository. Now we're going to create an implementation for that inside. In fact, this is it for our entire domain layer or package. Now inside our data, we'll have another package called repository. Inside this, we will have now our implementation. So multi-list repository implementation. So this will extend from the movie repository like this, and then we need to implement some functions, the two functions. But first of all, let's just actually implement Dagger Health with this. I explained this in the previous video, which is about Dagger Health. You just go to a new line here. So we inject the constructor, or actually I don't have a constructor. So inject constructor, and inside our constructor we need some things. The first thing we need is the movie API, so private var movie API, this one. And the second thing is the database, so private var movie database, this one. So if you don't know what inject constructor is, just watch the previous video, then you will understand what this is. This is from Dagger Health for dependency injection. Now our first function, how do we get the list of movies? Just to be clear, this is actually almost the most complex class in the app, the implementation of the repository. I don't know if it's the most complex one, but it's such a challenging one for those who actually didn't do this before. But first of all, with flow we can return a flow or a sequence of actions. That's why we use flow. The first action is, so we'll say emit. First of all, return flow. I forgot to do that. So return flow, that's what we need to return. And then the first action is emit, and then, as I said, loading. So resource dot loading, and set that to true. Now we are loading, so we're trying to get the movies from either the database or the API. So the second thing is that the first thing is that the app is a first offline app. So we'll first try getting the movies from the ROM database. If there is nothing from there, then we can get them from the API. But how do we get them? Just say var, let's say local movie list, and that is equal to the to the database now. So movie database.dow, data access object to access the stuff in our database dot get movie list by category. And I think, unless I'm wrong, I already passed category here. I thought I was searching for category, but yes, just pass category. So now we'll get a list of movies based on the category that I pasted. It can be either upcoming movies or popular movies. Now we'll check if we should get the movies from the local database. In case something is wrong, then we'll go to get them from the API. So var should load local. That's what local movies basically. That is equal to now our local movie list dot is empty. In case that is empty, then we have no movies, so we're going to get them from the API. And not only that, and what is that? So and not force fetch from remote. So what this variable does is that we'll check if this list is empty, and we're not forcing to fetch from remote, because even if this one is not empty, if we have movies already in the database, but we are forcing it, so this one is true, to get them from the API, then we'll ignore this and then directly go to get the new movies from the API, basically for paginating, to because we increased the page and now we want new movies. So if should load local movies. Why did I actually put this inside the variable? We can just copy this and put it inside here, but for more readability, this is a better approach. Now this will emit, so another action that we want, as I said, now a success action. So resource dot success, with that success thing will pass data, that is our local movie list. But there is one thing, what we want is a movie, and what we have is a movie entity. So if we check this is a list of movie entities, but this one returns a list of movie. We need to create mappers for this. What mappers is just to map an object to another. Especially in our case, a movie entity is the same as a movie, so they have the same data, but they're used for different purposes. That's why they are the same. So we need to create in fact a first different package called mappers, in which we have different mappers if we have them. Inside here we'll have our first one mapper basically, not many. So movie mapper, we have one mapper that is a class, not a class, just a file, and a mapper is just a function at the end. So movie entity, which is in fact an extension function, movie entity dot to movie. So we'll map this movie entity to movie, and inside our movie entity we have a category, but in movie we don't pass the category just like that, but we need to actually pass it manually. So category, this is of type string, and that will return for me a movie. So like this, and return movie. Now all the different types we need inside our map. So let's, for example, back something is back something, backdrop path. So what this means, this backdrop path is from our movie, and this one is from our movie entity. So we're mapping what we have in our movie entity to what we have in our movie. And I'm not going to write them because that's a waste of time. I'm just going to copy them and paste them. So all of them, including the category. The last one is the January ID. So January IDs, that is a list, and technically we can't store a list inside we can, but we need a workaround for that inside a database or an entity. What we need for this, movie has that as what is it as a list of integers, but entity, in fact that's something I didn't explain, but in entity, what is it, it's called genres, it's at a string, even though what we are getting from our DTO is a list. Because it's not really easy to store a list of integers inside a database, that's why I convert them to string. So now they are already a string now, but I will explain how to convert them, but they are a string now. So how do I convert them to a list of integers back? So how do I convert them back? By saying, now general IDs that we get from our movie entity dot split. So that's a string, and then we split that string with commas. So why? In fact, I think I first need to create the second mapper, actually, not this. I leave this one to the end so I could explain to you what's really going on here with this mapper. The second mapper, or basically actually normally the first mapper, this is the first mapper. So fun movie DTO dot to movie entity that will take again category of type string, and it will return a movie entity, and open the brackets like this, and then we'll return a movie entity. So right here I'm going now to paste the first ones but not the last one, so I would explain what that does. So these are the first ones. Basically this adult is inside movie entity, and this one is what we get from the movie data, and since that's nullable, so that can be null, we use this to tell it if it's null, then assign false. If this one null, assign an empty string, and some default values when that is null. But for the you can hear birds, I guess we have birds inside the house. So in the movie genre ID, in the genre IDs, that is going to equal to try genre IDs, and it's nullable. That's because this is what we get from our movie DTO dot now join to string. So what this means is that we have a list of integers, and then we're going to join them in one string. So that's literally what I'm doing here, because it's easier to store a string inside a database, and that's going to be enjoyed, or the separator is going to be a comma. So all of them will be inside a string, all of these integers. We separate them with a comma, and in case that is null, so if this thing is null, we could say this genre is, then the default value is just going to be a -1 and comma -2. So if we don't have any integers anyway, then this is going to be the default value, and in case this crashes for any reason, then we'll catch that, and that will be an exception like this, and the default value when that crashes is going to be the same like this. So I'm converting a list of integers into a string, and I join them with a comma. Now I want to convert back that string into a list of integers. So I get now the list, the string, and I split those strings, and I split those integers inside that string with those commas basically, and then I map that. So I get a bunch of integers now after removing the commas. I get a bunch of integers, and I set it to int. To int, because they are strings, but now I convert them to integers. So what I do here is that a lot of integers that are inside this string, I convert them to integers, or a list of integers. I know this is complex, but it makes sense once you understand it. Hopefully if you understand it. And then in case an exception happens, then the default value will be a list of default integers like -1, -2. So this is it for the mappers. Hopefully you understand them. I don't know if I explained them well, but yes, that's what they are. You can rewatch this section if you don't understand them. Now inside my implementation of the repository, we have now a list of movie entities, but the required is a list of movie. So we say .map, and now we get just movie entity, and inside here what we are going to say is movie entity dot to movie, the mapper we've created and then pass the category. Now we are mapping the movie entities to movies basically, and that's it. We emit a resource, and then we tell it we no longer load. So by just copying this and pasting it after this one, we don't load anymore. So set that to false and return the flow. So this is it when we get the movies from the database. Now, how if we want to get them from the API? So this is now a different thing. So if in case we're forced to load from remote, or this one is empty, we want to get them from the API. Basically, the first time we launch the app, then that's empty, so we'll load them from the API. That is going to be a var movie list from API, you could say, or from remote, whatever you want to call it. Try in case an exception happens. So we'll try doing this. Movie API dot get movie list, pass in the category, pass in the page, and that's it. We can get the movies like this from the API, but we can get exceptions basically. So catch, and actually different types of exceptions. So the first one is an IO exception, and we'll catch that in just first of all, let's print the stack trace to know what's going on, and then we'll emit a failure here. So resource dot error, and then the message. So message is going to be, I don't know, error. You can have better error handling or exception handling, but for the simplicity, error loading movies, that's what I'm going to say. We can have an IO exception, and now the other errors we can have, or exceptions we can have, is an HTTP exception and a general exception like this. These are the type of exceptions we can have. Now, after getting our movie list, we want now to map that into a movie entity, a list of movie entities, to store it inside the database, because as I said, this is a first offline app, and if anything we display in the screen or in the app is what we get from the database, not from the API. So even if we get these from the API, we first store them in the room database and then get them from the database, because this is a first offline app. It works in offline mode. So var movie entities, that is equal to movie list from API dot result. Oops, I don't know, is it this one? Let me just see what's going on here. It says unit. First of all, I need to return the flow here, that's why. Flow, but right here I need to return a list. That's the mistake. So a list, or not a list, but a movie list DTO. So movie list DTO, which is the one that we've created with the plugin. That's the mistake I made here. I forgot to return something here, but in fact I needed to return that list. So result, now we have the results dot lit to make sure that this thing is not null. It dot map. So now we'll map the movie DTO. We already created the mapper, so map it. So we'll in here we get a movie DTO. So we'll map this. So in a new line, movie DTO dot to movie entity, passing the category, and actually we created an entities that we get from the API, and then movie database to store that inside the database dot movie DAO dot upsert movie list, and that is going to be movie entities, and we emit a success basically. So emit resource dot success, because we succeeded on getting the movies from the API and then storing them inside the database movie entities dot map. But now we need to return again movies, not entities. Map it to movie category, and then tell it that we no longer load. Going back here, this is it. Just copy that and paste it right after that. And I think actually this is it for this one, that gets in the list of movies. The last one is going to be get in one movie. So just a recap, what is going on here? We return a flow, which is a sequence of actions. The first action, we tell it that we start loading. The second thing, this is an offline app. We get the movies from the database. In case that is empty, and in case we force loading from the remote, then, I mean, in case we force loading from the remote, then we'll ignore this. If that's true, so that is not empty. In fact, this one is not, I made a mistake. So in case that is not empty, in case we don't force loading from the remote, then this will be true. We'll emit a second action, as I said, a sequence of actions, a second action that is a success, and then we return a movie, a list of movies basically that we mapped from this local list. And then we third action and the last action is that we no longer load and return the flow. If this is false, we want to load from the remote. Create a variable that get those movies from the remote, and we get a movie list DTO. In case exceptions happen, then we'll catch them. IO exception, HTTP exception, and general exception, and then we map this list of movies that we get from this result that we have inside the DTO. In case it's not null, basically, that we have this lit block, map that to movie entity, store that inside the database. The action here, which is technically the second action because these won't execute if that is false. The second action, get the list of movies. The last action, we no longer load, and we're good to go. Now when we want to get one movie by ID, then we want to have the same thing basically, so return a flow. And I think I need to have an extra bracket like this, so return a flow that says, we say now we're loading true, and then var movie entity, because we have one entity that is movie database.dow.get movie by ID, and passing the ID. And if movie entity is not null, so just make sure that that is null, even though it shows this, but I don't know, for safety, if that's not null, it can't be null technically because it's not nullable, but still just check that. We want to emit now the second action, which is resource.success, and we'll pass our movie entity dot to movie, and then the category, which is movie entity dot category, because we already stored this in the database, so we now already have the category. And the last action is we no longer load, so oops, right here, set that to false in case we don't already have this movie inside the database, or that is null, but return the flow. If that is null, emit resource.error, and then we say error, no such item or anything, no such movie, for example. And then the last thing is that we want to tell it that we no longer load. This is it for the get movie item. Once you understand this, basically this is how you can get things from the database. In case they're not there, get them from the API and then store them in the database. This is it for the implementation. I don't know if this is the complex one, but this is it now for this video. The first part of this video is creating the data layer of this app. I don't think there is anything missing. Yes, I guess this is it now. We created the data layer for our app, and in the second part of this playlist, we'll start now creating the presentation or the UI for the app. So see you in the second part. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel to get new updates in Android development. So see you in the next video, and bye.